August is over and spring has begun. Let's discuss all the books that I read for the month of August. I finished 3 books for the month of August, which is a little on the lower end of what I would normally finish for the month. I did read every day still, it's just that I didn't really spend larger chunks of times with my books. So the 3 books that I did finish were The Tomb of the Sun King by Jacqueline Benson, The Midnight Feast by Lucy Foley, and The Vegetarian by Han Kang, which is translated from the Korean. These were all good books. I enjoyed them all. Hi, my name is Katrina and I journal using the Hobonichi weeks. For my reading journal, I use the left-hand column that I draw to write in where I get to for each of my reads every day, and then I use the rest of the space for decoration and any thoughts that I might have on each of my reads. So as I mentioned, I finished those 3 books, and I picked up The Vegetarian because it was part of my TBR card bingo. So I'd pulled a card that said to read a book with less than 200 pages. The Midnight Feast I read because I just went through my e-reader and I picked the first book that came up on the list that was marked as unread. And I read The Tomb of the Sun King because it was a continuation of a series that I had started earlier and was really enjoying, and I had the second book available. My purchases, however, were the same. I think I purchased 4 books for this month and I read 3, so my TBR is not going down. I could mark off 1 more though for my A to Z challenge, where I read a book that starts with every letter of the alphabet. This I think I might need to start making a little bit of a plan for, now that I'm getting to the harder letters. And like the Z and the X, like these ones don't sort of organically crop up from my TBR, so I'm thinking I might begin the hunt, because I have done very well with that list I think so far. My bingo board is also tracking really well. I just need to choose another card once I read a romantic fantasy, which was the last one that I pulled for my TBR cards. I wanted to go for a spring sort of theme for my spread for this month, because the beginning of September is the start of spring for Australia, and so I was trying to bring in that sort of theme into the spread, even though August is still technically a winter. So I wanted to sort of have the blues but then the yellows to sort of make it feel like spring is beginning. That's what I had thought, but in the end my colours didn't really work, and I would feel like it was more of a summer vibe in the end. The first book that I finished was The Tomb of the Sun King by Jacqueline Benson, which is the second in the Arcana series. I read the first one just recently and I really loved it. I liked the dynamic between the 2 main characters, Ellie and Adam, who had gone this adventure together. They're thrown together, but they really sort of click. I really like how these 2 characters get along with each other and how they interact. So with the second book, because there's a introduction of more characters, they're mentioned in the first one, but the first one is kind of Ellie and Adam are more isolated in the adventure, and so it's just their sort of perspectives. But with the second book we now shift into having this perspective of Ellie's brother and her friend as well, so that kind of shakes up the sort of the dynamic and the flow of the story. I really enjoyed it. I liked having those extra characters, but I do hope book 3 gives us a little bit more Ellie Adam time so we can sort of see how their relationship is going to unfold. This second book I don't want to reveal too much, because a lot of it is hidden in terms of the Arcana part. I guess that it hints at it in the series title. So Ellie and Adam in the first book are after a sort of lost civilization, and an artifact, and there's obviously the bad guys that are also trying to find the same location. For the second book, we knew from the end of the first one that these people were then going to move on to a dig site in Egypt, so Ellie and Adam are racing to get there before them, and in that they meet up with Ellie's brother, and her friend also comes along. I really enjoyed this book because it had a lot more of the Egyptian history, like it's very well researched, and I liked that backdrop of the story a lot more. And I am excited though to see where the third book goes. It comes out soon. Then for the next read, I wasn't really sure what I felt like, so as I mentioned before, I picked up the Midnight Feast by Lucy Foley because I wanted to just tick off another one from my list, and of course I'm still only doing my e-reads at the moment. I really need to pick up my physical reads, and this one was the first one that came up as unread, and I have read from this author before, and I enjoy Lucy Foley's writing, and I've read a couple of her books now. I still can't seem to find myself putting her on my favourite authors list. I don't know why. There's nothing bad about the books. They're just very tidy. So this one is, we have like a dual timeline type thing. So it starts off, it's the opening weekend of this posh new like glamping retreat type thing. So all these super rich people can book in for the weekend and everything's catered for them, and there's like social events and drinking, and they can, relax and, spend lots of money. And so we are slowly getting revealed that, the locals aren't impressed with this rich lady turning this house into a hotel. It was her house, she didn't buy it up. But she's done a lot of things to renovate the space. She's accessing beaches as if they're privately owned, and the locals aren't too happy with her. And then there's like a series of sort of threats, and then we also get a lot of perspectives. There's a lot of characters that we read from in this. So we have the main lady, the rich lady, but we also have one of the guests as a perspective, and it slowly becomes more obvious that this guest previously knew this richer lady and knows a little bit about her dark past. So it's all just a big unraveling of everyone's secrets and this big mystery. And I did like how it was sort of woven, but as I said, it's very tidy in the end with some of the reveals. Because it's a murder mystery, I don't want to give away too much. I just thought I would mention that it's quite atmospheric with this tree with these eyes, and there's like a secret diary from the past, and everyone's not who they say they are, and so it's just a very interwoven multi-perspective book that I quite enjoyed. I would say 4 stars. Like, there's nothing I could say that was wrong with it, and it did read very easy. I quite enjoyed it. The last book that I finished for the month of August was The Vegetarian by Han Kang, and I'm not really sure how to describe this book. I had thought going in that it was going to be, as the premise mentioned, a book about a lady who wants to become a vegetarian, and her family is not too happy with this decision because it impacts, their socializing. But it is much, much more than that. Here we see our main character in the first part of the book. It's broken into 3 parts, and she has decided to become vegetarian because she's having these very vivid, really brutal dreams of like slaughter and all this blood, and so she can't stand the thought of meat, and it gets further than that. She can't stand the thought of being near people that eat meat, and it slowly devolves into being something that is more about mental health. And even though she doesn't continue being the main focus or like perspective from after the first part, the next 2 parts are people that are on her peripheral, they're in her family. So the next one is her brother-in-law, the man that is married to her sister, and then the third part is the perspective of the sister. And this really becomes a book about mental health and how it can change people's lives. I would like to mention though as well that it is a very, very weird book. There's a lot of uncomfortable parts as well, where it's very clear that she's mentally ill and there's some sort of advantage being taken of her during that time. Rather than someone taking care of her, they take advantage of her. I almost DNF'd it at that second part because of this, but then there was a little bit of redemption with the book, with the other characters stepping in, so that made me feel a bit better about continuing. Overall, I'm glad I read it. It's interesting. I'm not sure I'd seek out more books by the same author, but we will see. I hope you had a good reading month for August as well, and I will talk to you soon. Bye!